Welcome to the Firewall Analyzer Training Part 1, Season 4. Before we start, I would like to know if you can hear me and see the presentation. Please confirm the same in the chat panel. A brief introduction about myself. I'm Mauli Srinivasan, product expert in Firewall Analyzer, have more than 6 years experience in product marketing. So let us get straight to the point. So what is Firewall Analyzer? Firewall Analyzer is a monitoring and reporting software. More specifically, it is a policy and log analytics tool. Now, let us look at a more important question in hand. Why should one go for a Firewall Analyzer? For this, I would like to propose a scenario in the next slide. Say you want to get fit and hence you buy a Fitbit. Do you think that just by buying and wearing a Fitbit, you're going to get fit? The obvious answer is no. Instead, analyzing your performance in the gym and incorporating changes at regular intervals will help you achieve the desired fitness goals. Similarly, for a healthy network, it is of utmost importance that all your network security devices are continuously monitored and necessary changes are made to optimize the device performance. Similar to how a Fitbit continuously monitors the body, Firewall Analyzer continuously monitors the firewall. Now that you know what and why you need a Firewall Analyzer for, let us look at the agenda for the day. Number one, we are going to look at some of the basics of Firewall Analyzer. Next, we are going to look at how to fetch policies and configuration from your firewall device to the Firewall Analyzer. Once we fetch policies and configuration, we are going to look at rule management, how to optimize firewall rules, change management, how to monitor configuration changes. Finally, we are going to look at how to generate compliance report and security audit report. Listed here is the basic installation requirement. Firewall Analyzer can be installed on a Windows or a Linux system. All syslogs received by the Firewall Analyzer by default is stored in the Postgres DB. If needed, you can also configure the syslogs to be stored in an MS SQL server. The disk space and RAM size mentioned here are the minimum requirement. The same might vary depending on the number of devices being analyzed and the number of devices sending log information to Firewall Analyzer. With the basic requirements fulfilled, you can install Firewall Analyzer in your system. Let us look at the steps to fetch device rule. Step 1 is to configure your firewall device to generate syslogs at the UDP port 1514, which would act as the listener port for Firewall Analyzer. Once you receive the syslogs from the firewall to the Firewall Analyzer, credential profile can be set for that specific device in the Firewall Analyzer. Once you set the credentials, you have to now fetch rules and configuration from your firewall and add the device to the device rule. Step 1 and 2 will be covered in detail in the next session on October 25th. The following are the prerequisite ports that need to be free and the respective protocol that would be used. Port number 22 for SSH/SCP, port number 69 for TFTP, port number 23 for Telnet. And finally, last but not the least, as mentioned before, UDP port 1514 for the Firewall Analyzer to receive the syslog. Once we establish a connection with the following protocol, Telnet, Telnet TFTP, SSH TFTP, and SCP, we can add the device in the device rule by fetching the rules and configuration from the firewall. We can fetch rules and configuration by two methods. One, you can directly fetch rules and configuration from a firewall. Given below is a sample screenshot on how to add device info. Given on the left is the CLI of the firewall device. We have taken a case of Cisco firewall. On the right is the Firewall Analyzer product UI. First, you need to enter the username, password, prompt, enable command, enable password, and enable prompt. I'll show you how the same can be done in the product UI. Go to settings, click on device rule, and click on add. Select the firewall device that needs to be added, select the protocol, enter the login name, enter the login password, enter the password, enter the enable prompt, enter the enable command, enable password, and enable prompt. Once you enter this, click on test to check if all your credentials are correct. Once you see that all the credentials are correct, you can click on next. Once you click on next, you can fetch rules from the firewall, generate security audit reports from this firewall, and you can generate change management reports. I would also like to tell you that change management reports can be notified. Any changes made to the configuration can be notified directly to your mail or to your SMS. You can also schedule your change management reports directly to your email on a daily or a weekly basis. Once you configure all this, click on save. And once you click on save, your firewall device info will be added in the device root. In case you have multiple firewalls and you want to add the device info in device rules, doing this one by one is an arduous task. A simpler way is to create a credential profile and apply that to different firewalls in case you are using the same credentials for multiple firewalls. Let us look at how this can be done in the product UI. Go to settings and under firewall server, click on credential profile. Now click on add, enter all the credentials that I mentioned before, login name, password, enable command, enable password, and enable prompt. Once you do that, you can hit save, set the profile name and hit save. Once you create this credential profile, you can directly assign this profile to a firewall device. And then rules and configuration will be directly fetched. The second way to add devices in the device tool is to directly upload rules and configuration. First, for this, you have to export the configuration file from your firewall. Next, you need to create a rule file manually. So what is a rule file? It is a text file with each rule listed in a single line in the respective order. And each rule needs to be separated by a comma. Once you have these two files, you can import the rule file and configuration file respectively and add the device under the device tool. I'll show you how this is done in the product UI. Go to settings, click on device tool and click on add. Once you click on add, select the firewall and select file. So here, as I mentioned, this is the rule file where you need to upload the rule file, and here is where you need to upload the configuration file. Once you click on import, the device rules and configurations will be fetched from your firewall device to the firewall analyzer. Once you fetch rules and configuration from the firewall, you get access to three reports. First is the rule management report. Second is the change management report. Third is the security audit and compliance report. Now, let us look at a scenario. Jim is a new network admin who has joined a company. And in his company, there have been a lot of network security issues. As a preliminary task, he has been asked to do the following things. First is to optimize firewall policies or rules. Second is to monitor and audit changes made to the firewall configuration. Third is to submit a detailed compliance and security audit report. Let us look at what are the challenges faced by Jim and how he overcomes these challenges. Case 1. Let us look at the first task in hand for Jim. Optimize firewall policy. Jim has the following challenges. It is a 10-year-old company and there are nearly more than 1,000 rules for him to review. He has to review each rule manually and has no direct visibility into the existing rules. Since it is an old company and rules have not been reviewed from day one, there are a lot of duplicate and unused rules. More than one security admin have written the rules and hence the rules are highly unoptimized. Let us look at how Firewall Analyzer's rule management report can help Jim optimize the firewall. So, policy overview report under the rule management gives you the visibility to all the rules that have been written on the firewall. I'll show how this is in the product UI. Go to compliance, under rule management, click on policy overview. Under policy overview, select the firewall for which rules need to be reviewed. And as you can see from this Cisco firewall, all the rules are listed here with the source, destination, source interface, destination, interface, service. And you also get to know if it is a denied or an allowed rule. And you can also filter the rules according to allowed rules, denied rules, firewall inbound rules, firewall outbound rules, inactive rules, logging disabled rules, any overly permissive rules. Now that Jim has solved the visibility issue, he now has to address the second issue in hand. As mentioned before, the rules have been written by multiple security admins and have not been reviewed for over a long period of time. Because of this, there are a lot of anomalous rules which affect the performance of the firewall. Firewall Analyzer identifies the following rule anomalies. One is the shadow anomaly, second is the redundancy anomaly, third is the generalization anomaly, fourth is the correlation anomaly, and fifth is the grouping anomaly. In this slide, we have given a detailed explanation of all the anomalies detected by Firewall Analyzer. Now let us look at how anomalies are shown in the product UI. So under policy optimization, for Cisco Firewall, you see that there are 5 redundant rules, 1 generalized rule, 6 correlated rules, 14 shadow rules, and there are no grouping anomalies. So you can also filter the anomalies, for example, correlation anomalies alone, and he gets all the rules that have correlation anomaly. Jim can now go back to the firewall, make the necessary changes and remove these anomalous rules and make the firewall performance better. With multiple security admins writing rules, the rules are not optimally arranged. For example, say that a new rule was written recently and this takes the position number 500, but it is a rule which has a lot of hits, a frequently used rule. Every time the firewall processor has to go through all the other 499 rules to get to this rule. This takes a hit on the firewall processing speed. Firewall Analyzer provides a rule reorder report which helps you solve this problem. Let us look at how this report looks in the product UI. Click on rule reorder, and as you can see that rule number 4, we have suggested that to move rule number 4 to rule number 1 because it has a bigger head count and there's a probability of a performance improvement of up to 18%. So Jim gets a clear view of what are the rules that have to be reordered. He can go back to his firewall, make the necessary changes, improve the performance of his firewall. Having received the session, Jim can now, since it is a 10-year-old company, there's a possibility that there are a lot of rules which are not used. And since it is out of place, the same rules might be used to breach the system. With the Firewall Analyzer unused rule report, you get a detailed list of all the unused rules, unused objects, and unused interfaces. Let us look at how this looks in the product UI. Click on unused rules and you get a list of all the unused rules for the specified firewall. You can also click on today, 24 hours, 7 days, 30 days. So with this, you get the list of all the unused rules, unused objects, and unused interfaces. It is recommended that you first deactivate these rules in your firewall for a short period of time, and once you find that there's no impact in the network, the same can be safely removed. This would not only make your network safer, but also aid in the firewall processing speed. Now that Jim has reviewed all the rules and made the necessary changes in his firewall to improve the performance of the rules, let us look at the second task he has been assigned. One of the employees in Jim's team left the company, and it is suspected that he did some damage to the firewall configuration. But this has gone unnoticed, and they have not been able to identify the exact specifics of the changes made. They want to avoid this in the future, and hence the second task that Jim has been assigned is to monitor and record all the changes in the firewall. What are the challenges that Jim has? First, he has no previous track record of all the configuration changes, and currently he has no tool to track all the configuration changes. Not only that, he also cannot be alerted or notified once a configuration change has been made. Again, let us look at how Firewall Analyzer's change management report helps Jim solve this issue. As mentioned before, changes made to the firewall configuration had gone unnoticed. So if someone had made a change in the firewall, nobody knew who it was. But with Firewall Analyzer, say if Greg makes a change to the firewall, this is immediately recorded in the Firewall Analyzer. Not only that, Firewall Analyzer also tracks when the change was made and what was changed. Let us look at how this report looks in the product UI. Click on Change Management, and under Change Management, select the firewall device and select a time period. As you can see, there have been multiple changes made on 3 days. So we get to know when the changes were made, and you also get to know who has made the change. On exploring, you get a detailed explanation of all the changes that were made. You can also set startup and running conflict to check what are the changes made from startup to current running conflict. With Firewall Analyzer, you can get what are the configuration changes that have been added in green color, what are the configuration changes that have been modified in blue color, and what are the configuration changes that have been deleted in red color. So you can not only schedule reports, but also set alarm notification directly to your email or SMS. You can also schedule change management reports on a weekly basis or a daily basis. This was already shown when we were adding the device in the device tool. With the change management report, Jim gets visibility over who changed what, and also gets real-time alerts on all the changes that are made in your firewall configuration. And hence, Jim has successfully completed his second task. Now, let us proceed to the next use case. So Jim's company needs to be compliant with multiple security standards, but they are falling short with a lot of them. This has affected them so much that they have started losing customers as their compliance is not up to date. Jim has been assigned a task to submit a detailed compliance report and a security audit report. And what are the challenges faced by Jim? There are no out-of-the-box reports, and his company, as I mentioned before, a lot of compliance standards are outdated. But the bigger problem is they do not know where they are lagging behind. And there's a lack of unified monitoring tool. Let us look at how Firewall Analyzer helps Jim solve this issue. Firewall Analyzer provides out-of-the-box compliance standard reports, which include SANS, PCI DSS, NIST, ISO, and NERCP. This helps you periodically check for compliance and also lets you assess your firewall security. Let us look at how the report looks in the product UI. Go to Standard, and in the Standard, as mentioned before, you get compliance standards for PCI DSS. He's 55%, his company is only 55% compliant. Compliance standard for SANS, only 66% compliant. Compliance standards for NIST, only 60% compliance. ISO, 57% compliant. And NERC, only 37% compliant. On clicking on more, we get a clear status as to which section they are failing in. So Jim is working in a card-based company which deals with a lot of financial transaction and hence have to be compliant with PCI DSS. But as you can see from the product UI, they are only 55% compliant with PCI DSS. So we need to check which are the sections that Jim's company is failing. On exploring more, we get all the sections under PCI DSS. The ticks represent the section which they are compliant in. The stars represent section which have to be manually reviewed, and the sections which have been marked cross are sections which they have failed in. Let us look at a failed section, example of a failed section. Section 1.3.2, which states that limit inbound internet traffic to IP addresses within the DMCs. Let us check why they have failed in this section. On clicking on the section, you can see that these rules allow traffic from WAN to non-DMCs. So hence, this is the reason why they have failed in this section. And Firewall Analyzer also gives you a recommendation as to say, do not allow any traffic from WAN to non-DMCs, and always allow inbound traffic destined to DMCs alone and secure DMCs properly. With this, he can go back to his firewall, make the necessary changes, and again check if he has passed this section. If he has made the correct change, his compliance will be more, and he can again go check if he has cleared that section. Similarly, he can work on all the other compliance reports and be compliant with the latest security standards. Next is the security audit report. Firewall Analyzer security audit report helps you identify the configuration loopholes in your firewall. It lists security events based on criticality. It lists configuration loopholes based on criticality, critical, high, medium, low, and info. It provides a detailed finding what is the impact on the network and also suggests solution, and that thus can help prevent security events. Finally, Jim has successfully completed all the 3 tasks assigned to him. To summarize, Firewall Analyzer is a policy and configuration monitoring tool. It helps us identify policy anomalies and unused rules or objects, and thereby helps in optimizing firewall performance. It provides out-of-the-box compliance reports for SANS, PCI DSS, NIST, ISO, and NERC. Finally, Firewall Analyzer supports all major firewall vendors. And we have technology partnership with Checkpoint, Palo Alto, and WatchGuard, and given below is a testimonial from one of our customers. We support more than 50 firewall vendors and more than 200 devices. So we have a lot more exciting topics to cover on the next training, which is scheduled on the 25th of October. To know more on how to set a real-time alarm notifications in the firewall and to get an understanding of all the practical applications on how to secure your network by analyzing all the syslog reports generated by Firewall Analyzer, don't forget to join us on October 25th. The next is the Q&A session, which will be held by a product expert, Aswin.
Hi, my name is Aswim, and I'm from the Firewall Analyzer product expert team. I expertise on product training, supporting the major critical issues that we come across, and also present the product in various events. I have more than 9 years experience in this domain. So on this particular session of Firewall Analyzer training, I will be taking you through some questions that we often come across, and those questions, how we come across with some solution, all these things we'll discuss. So let's see the question number one. Does the application support configuration analysis for checkpoint firewalls? Usually, Firewall Analyzer supports more than 50 known vendors in the market, which covers almost all major vendors like Cisco, FortiGate, Checkpoint, Juniper, all of them are there. But the configuration analysis part that we are talking about, this requires a direct communication between the firewall and Firewall Analyzer using a CLI method. It can be SSH or Telnet or SCP or TFTP SSH or TFTP Telnet. When we communicate with Checkpoint Firewall, usually the Checkpoint Firewall management server is the one that we communicate. We don't directly communicate with the Checkpoint Firewalls. It's the management server that we communicate with. So we cannot actually go ahead and fetch the rules and the configuration directly from the management server and produce these reports. However, we can export the configuration files from management server of Checkpoint and import those files onto Firewall Analyzer, and then we can generate security audit report. We can generate unused rule information. So these are some information that we can analyze. However, we cannot generate policy optimization, policy rule reorder, those kind of things we cannot produce. So to answer this, it's a partial support for Checkpoint devices for configuration analysis. Question number two, can I get any specific version of startup or running configuration from the application? So when we back up the configuration, or when we fetch the configuration from the firewall, the configuration can be a startup or can be a running configuration. Over the period of time, when you keep on doing changes every day, every week, every month, so new configuration files will be backed up, and those things will be stored in the database in encrypted format for your historical analysis. So let's say you install the product today, and after 6 months you want to see the configuration that was there like 5 months before. So for those kind of situation, we store the historical configuration. Maybe it's a startup, maybe it's a running. We store both of them, and you can go ahead and see the startup running configuration with respect to its version number from the product UI. Let's actually see it in the product UI, how it will look like. So here I go to reports. Under compliance report, we have the change management. Under change management, let's say you are looking for last 30 days information. In the last 30 days information, for example, I take the Cisco. So I have all my historical configuration stored over here. Now assume I'm looking on this particular configuration to compare between two versions, and I want to compare between version number 1 and version number, the latest one, that is 6 probably. So when I compare the older configuration, that was the very first configuration I picked, and the latest configuration, I can compare them and I can see their difference. And to find the conflict between startup and running configuration, we can select that. So let's say the startup configuration of version 1 and running configuration of version 1. I want to compare that way, or I want to compare with the running configuration of the current one and the startup configuration of the first fetch. In that way also I can compare. So the historical comparison or historical view of the old configuration that we have taken, that can be always analyzed from the application UI. Question number 3, while adding the device rule, test credential got failed. What should I do? I believe you saw this information when my colleague was taking you through the device rule addition. He did a test and all the credential got failed. And after saving, it did not actually fetch the rules and configuration. So what could have been the mistake there, or what could be the correct way to go ahead and do that? Um, First, when we put in the credential in the credential page, we have to ensure the sequence of the login name, password, prompt, enable command, enable username, enable password, and enable prompt. Those sequence are given appropriately. In case any of these prompts or the sequence of the login credential is not matching the way you do it in the CLI tool, for example, you log in using putty or something, and you provide the login name and then password, then it comes to a prompt, then you provide the enable command, then enable password. So that sequence has to be followed exactly the way you do it in putty. You do the same thing in the product UI. If you provide the correct sequence, it will not fail, it will proceed, and it will do the job appropriately. Question number 4. I have a firewall with VDOMs. Will Firewall Analyzer fetch and analyze their configuration too? So VDOMs are the virtual firewalls that you create on physical firewalls. So if you take 40-gate firewalls, you can create virtual firewalls, multiple virtual firewalls on top of a physical firewall. In Cisco, you can do it based on contexts. You can create multiple contexts, and each context will act as a complete firewall. It will have its own configuration, it will have its own rules. So those VDOMs or the virtual firewalls are exactly like a complete firewall. So if we want to fetch their configuration, first of all, we have to add them onto the Firewall Analyzer as a separate device. So you need to forward syslogs from the virtual firewalls as well. So those devices will also get added as separate entities or separate devices. Once those virtual firewalls are added, then you can very well go ahead and fetch their configuration and rule to do the rule analysis or configuration change management or compliance management, security audit. Those kind of things are possible for virtual firewalls as well. Question 5. Is it possible to ignore a line or a configuration so that it will not appear as a configuration change in the change management report? I'll give you a scenario here. For example, you have a Cisco or FortiGate firewall. So when you want to change a password for the firewall, that is a configuration change. You are executing a command and that is changing the password. So that will be also taken as a configuration change, and we will show that in the configuration change management report. But most of the scenarios, most of the use cases, people do not want to show the sensitive information like passwords in those reports, because you may have given access of Firewall Analyzer to multiple users in your network. So you do not want everybody to see a sensitive information like password. So in those scenarios, we can use exclude criteria to exclude some lines from the configuration changes. How do we do it? Under settings, we have something called as exclude criteria. In this exclude criteria, you need to add a template. So you just provide a template name and then select the device on which this template will be appended, and then you provide the criteria. For example, I do not want to show my password changes in the configuration change management report. So I can provide the criteria based on contains or starts with, and then the sequence or the regex will be given in the form of dot star, then give the phrase or the word that you do not want to show, then dot star, and then add it. After adding, you just save it. So next time onwards, when the configuration change management report is generated for the same device, it will not appear or it will not show the password related lines at all. So you achieve this requirement in this way. Question 6. How to get immediate notification for configuration change if anyone performed those changes anomalously. So two type of things we are giving for configuration change management. One is a notification, the other one is a report. The notification will be sent immediately when the configuration change has happened. So how does it work? So assume a scenario that you log into your firewall using putty, and then you execute a command to do some configuration change, and then you log out successfully from the putty. So what happens in the backend, for each event, when you log in, it will create a syslog for login event. When you execute a command, it will again create a syslog, which is command execution syslog. And then when you log out, it will again create a new syslog, that is logout syslog. The moment the logout syslog is generated and received in Firewall Analyzer, Firewall Analyzer will automatically initiate a fetch of configuration, the new configuration from the firewall, and then it will find the username from the logout syslog who logged out, and it will trigger a notification immediately that this user has done this particular change at this point of time. So these three information we find from the logout syslog itself. However, the configuration is addition, modification, or deletion. That part will be done by comparing the new configuration with the older configuration. So we can tell you that this user has added or modified or deleted something from the firewall configuration. Question 7. Can I roll back any specific configuration using Firewall Analyzer? Imagine a situation where someone has done a damage to the configuration, which has created a lot of high risk impact on the network. So the next step, what you want to do is roll back to the previous known good configuration that was there of the firewall. So the firewall will be back and the situation will be handled. That's the only best and easiest way to come out of that damage. But Firewall Analyzer, as we know, it backs up the configuration, or it fetches the configuration from the firewall whenever there is a new change happened. So it does store all the historical configuration with labeling of version number. Every new configuration will be saved with a new version number. Now, to roll back, we have to push the configuration from the application to Firewall Analyzer, which is not possible by Firewall Analyzer. Firewall Analyzer is a complete reporting application which will only show you the information, but it will not be able to take any action on the firewall directly. So once you see the configuration, probably you can export it as a text file, and then maybe you can do your necessary activities on the firewall to import or write the configuration once again. It will have the information of the older version, but it will not be able to push the configuration back onto Firewall Analyzer, back onto firewall. Question 8. Is there a report to verify who changed the configuration? Absolutely yes. The username, as we discussed in one of the previous questions, the username of the configuration changes are captured by the logout syslog that is being generated when you successfully log out from the device. And those usernames who changed that, we see it in the configuration change management report. Let's see it here. So we go to compliance, change management. So let's say I select Cisco again, and I select last 30 days. So in last 30 days, who all the user accounts has changed the configuration, I can see it under changed by. The changed by information will be shown for who did the changes. Can we update rule reorder position change automatically in the firewall? So rule reorder is a suggestion given by Firewall Analyzer that how you should arrange the rules in the firewall for better performance. And this suggestion is given based on the usability of the rules, how frequently the rules are getting used. Based on that, the suggestion is given. But it is a suggestion, it's a report, and the necessary action has to be taken separately in the firewall by the network admin Firewall Analyzer will not be able to push the reorder position directly to the firewall because it cannot take an action on the firewall directly. Question 10. I need to know what kind of command executed in device over a period of time. So can I get that information? Yes, absolutely. So the commands, when we execute, for every command, we have a predefined report to show you what all the commands are executed in a period of time. So when I go to reports, firewall reports, I'll have some 20 plus predefined reports here. So one of the report right here will be admin report. This admin report will show you the information about, let's say I select last 30 days. In last 30 days, what are the successful logons, successful logoffs, and denied user logon and commands executed. So in last 30 days, I see the commands executed are these many, and who all the users executed these commands, I can see it right from here. And I can export this report as a PDF or CSV as per my requirement. This is the end of the 10 questions I had that we get frequently. During this session, I got one more question in the questionnaire session. The question was, can we add Active Directory in Firewall Analyzer to give authentication to some users? It's like giving external authentications to the AD users to access Firewall Analyzer. Yes, we can do that. For Windows domains, we can, if the Firewall Analyzer is installed in a Windows machine, then we can very well go ahead and add the Active Directory and select users or groups or the entire list of users within the Active Directory. And then when they log into the Firewall Analyzer, they can use their AD credential to log into the Firewall Analyzer. And you can assign admin or operator access to these external authenticated users, which are AD users. So for more information, you can always visit our website, www.manageengine.com/product/firewall. And for forums and support, you can use the website, and the email address, the support email address is fwanalyzer-support@manageengine.com, and you can always contact us through phone as well. Thank you so much for joining on this session. And before we close up this session, we request you to provide your valuable feedback on the session. And for any future training session, we'll keep you posted via email. In case you want a more dedicated or detailed explanation of the product, you can always request for a personalized demo, which will be conducted via WebEx online. And yeah, that's all from my side today. Thank you so much for joining on this session. Have a beautiful day ahead. Take care. Bye-bye.